Okay, so when you hear the name Garmin, what do you think of? For a lot of us, it's probably that GPS unit we used to have stuck to our car's dashboard, right? So how on earth did a company that kind of feels like it was made obsolete by smartphones just have its best year ever in 2025? Yeah, you heard that right. Let's dig into it.
It's a really surprising story for sure, but when you look closer, it's actually a masterclass in business strategy. It proves that Garmin today is so much more than just a GPS company.
And we're not talking about a small win here. This wasn't just, squeaking past expectations. They didn't just navigate the market, they completely set a new course, absolutely smashing records in a bunch of different areas. So let's get into the actual numbers. All right, first up, Garmin's record-breaking performance. Let's take a look at those big headline numbers. So the big one, the headline number, is this: $7.25 billion. That was their total revenue for 2025. And get this, it's a brand new annual record for the company. That's a huge 15% jump from the year before. Just massive. And they didn't just limp across the finish line. They finished the year with a total bang. In that final quarter, they just blew past what Wall Street was expecting. Analysts thought they'd bring in about $2 billion in revenue. Garmin delivered over $2.1 billion. Same story with earnings per share. They beat the forecast by 40 cents. That is a seriously powerful way to end the year. And the company's CEO, Cliff Pemble, he really summed it up perfectly. He pointed out that this wasn't just one single product line carrying the whole company on its back. No way. They had record revenue in all 5 of their segments. And that right there, that's the crucial point. It's the real key to understanding their success.
So that leads us perfectly into our next section. Let's pop the hood on this thing and really look inside Garmin's growth engine. We need to see exactly where all this power is coming from.
Really, the best way to think about Garmin isn't as a GPS company anymore. Think of it more like a multi-sport athlete. Like someone who excels at 5 completely different sports. That diversification, well, that's its superpower. It's how they've managed to avoid that classic single-product trap that's taken down so many other tech companies. Okay, so here's a look at that strategy in action. You can see fitness, that's their smartwatches and stuff. It's the biggest slice of the pie at about 32%. But look at the others. Outdoor, marine, and aviation, they're all billion-dollar-plus businesses in their own right. It means if one area has a bit of a slow quarter, the others are strong enough to carry the weight. That balance, that's what makes them so resilient. Now that fitness segment was an absolute monster in 2025. It was the main engine for their growth. Revenue shot up by a staggering 33%, breaking the $2 billion mark for the very first time. And what's maybe even more impressive is that its operating income, the actual profit, jumped by 50%. That is just incredible profitability. But again, like we said, this company is not a one-trick pony. The outdoor segment also had a milestone year, crossing that $2 billion line for the first time. Then you have aviation, which saw solid 13% growth, and marine grew by 10%, really dominating with their chart plotters. The amazing thing is, every single one of these segments set its own new record. Okay, now the auto OEM segment. This is a really fascinating story. If you just look at the surface, it looks like a weak spot, right? It lost $49 million in 2025, and sales are actually expected to go down next year. But, and this is a big but, you have to look at the long-term bet they're making. They just landed a massive deal with Mercedes-Benz. They're going to supply the domain controllers. Think of it like the central brain for a car's electronics, for their entire lineup of cars. So yeah, it's a short-term loss, but it's a huge strategic investment that is set to pay off in a very big way, starting in 2027.
Of course, it's not all sunshine and record profits. Every company faces obstacles. So let's get a balanced look here and talk about some of the headwinds that Garmin is navigating. And this, naturally, brings up the million-dollar question you have to ask any company that's on a hot streak like this. Can they keep it going? Is this momentum actually sustainable?
Well, to their credit, the company was pretty upfront about the challenges. They're dealing with rising costs for things like memory components, which is a problem for basically the entire industry right now. They also talked about navigating what they called generationally high tariffs. And yeah, all that pressure is expected to make their gross margin dip just a little bit in the coming year.
But once again, the CEO came out projecting a lot of confidence. He didn't ignore the challenges, but he made it really clear that because of their diversified business model and their strategy, they feel very well prepared to handle whatever comes their way. Okay, so let's wrap this up by looking at the road ahead. What's the official roadmap? What does Garmin itself expect to happen in 2026?
Well, their official guidance shows they fully expect this winning streak to continue. They're targeting another 9% growth in revenue, which would put them at nearly $8 billion. And what's really crucial here, they're projecting that their operating income will cross that $2 billion mark for the first time ever. That's a huge milestone.
And they're not just hoarding the cash, they're sharing the success. They're rewarding their shareholders with a proposed 17% dividend increase and a brand new $500 million share buyback program. You know, when a company commits to giving back that much cash, it's a huge signal of confidence from the leadership team about their financial future.
So that leaves us with one final big question. You've got their fitness business absolutely sprinting ahead, and you have that landmark auto deal with Mercedes just waiting on the horizon. The question is, will that powerful diversified strategy be enough to let them outpace the challenges and the economic headwinds we talked about? Can they continue this incredible, record-breaking run into 2026?